funny thing is, Mo and I have been talking about it recently. More and more, it's been like I got something good, or I walked into this room for something, and then a noise or a child will like say your name, and you're like, "Yep," and you turn back around, you're like, "Why am I here?
What am
What
I
was I
doing?
supposed to do? Yeah, what am I supposed to do?" And it's so frustrating because you're like, "I think it was important too. Pretty sure it was important, right?"
Does that I have to imagine in some culture there's like a word for that. I want to know like what are the Danish or the Japanese or something
I don't,
call
I don't
uh
know. We call it getting older. I think that's the phrase. That's what Mo and I decided to call it. It's like, man, we are getting older. We are not in our 20s or 30s anymore. When a sound can take you off track, like, huh? How did I get in the kitchen? Was I supposed to bring something? Or you leave the area and you're like, oh, I left my wallet there. Yep, I'm pretty sure I left my wallet there.
Yep, I mean I really have to like run back to where I was having the thought and like retrace my steps literally to get
I do
some of
too.
those things back, but
That's
sometimes
usually
they're just
strong enough
gone.
trigger. Yeah, it's a strong enough trigger to be like, oh, that's why. But
Yep.
I always play the other side of the coin where it's like, if it was really important, you probably would have remembered it. So it's probably not that important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I
Yep.
remember to pick up my kid. So that's usually what it is. So
Oh, that's where I was
that's
headed.
what it was. Oops.
Yes, yes. I had my first little bit of like dad, I feel like dad failure, like I don't know what to call it. Basically like my like parental concern at school, like
Mm,
drop-offs. Um when I was dropping my son off, we were a little bit late, not like
okay.
over. He was still going to make it to class in time, but like they shut off the main drive-through part
Oh, I got you. Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
2 minutes before, and so we were 2 minutes before, and so I was like, "Oh shoot, I gotta go this other way." We've never gone this way before. Long story
Oh,
short, I'm like looking for the people that like take him because
mhm.
usually there's always somebody that meets
A
you at the
handoff. Yeah, there's
car.
a
Yeah, the
handoff. Yeah.
handoff. And I thought, oh, I might have to like try and wave somebody down. I don't see anybody. And the person kind of came from behind and then was like, hey. I was like, oh, okay, cool. He's set. He gets out of the car and Driveline, it's business, right? So I was like, okay, I gotta go. They close
Clock's
the
ticking.
door. Yeah,
Yeah.
people behind you will have
They
problems if
literally
you
have a
don't move.
stopwatch. As soon as that door opens up, click.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's like an F1 tire swap,
Exactly. It better be. If not, you're getting an earful.
Yeah. So I start moving and I see my little guy in the mirror. I'm like, bye, buddy. And the person was like, do you know where you're going? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, uh-oh. And as I'm moving, I'm turning the corner and I see him and I see her just kind of like point him through the school area, like, okay, bye. And I was like, wait, he needs to be
No.
like walked over. Like he
Yeah,
doesn't know where he's going. He's a smart kid. He can figure it out.
but
But
still.
so then I'm like, oh no. And then she lets go of his hand and then he like turns around and he's like, and then I'm gone. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh no. And so all I can imagine, I'm just like floating in this sense of like, oh, you screwed it up now. You didn't tell him that he's in TK and he's probably crying in the middle of the school grounds now, and he's not getting checked into his class. All those things, right?
Yeah.
And so then I pulled up to the front of the school. I I parked, grabbed the
Walked in.
kids, like walked in, and was like, I just need to confirm that he
My
made it to
child's in
class.
this
Sorry, this
classroom.
is really
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
And they were very kind, and they were like, we'll go check. So they let me know that he made it. And then I was like,
Truth be
man, I'm
told,
gonna
he
have
was in
to
the
tell him
playground for like 30 minutes, right? Just swinging. He's like, finally, I get the swing set to myself.
this is the spot. I want to get dropped off here all the time.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, no, I told him, all right, I picked him up and he was like, I said, did you know where to go? Did you find it? And he goes, yeah, I knew exactly where to walk. And so I think they ended up like actually taking him over to the person that he's supposed to
I'm
be
sure.
with. But he's a
Yeah.
smart guy. So I'm proud of him.
That's
My
awesome.
fear turned into pride and there
And you
we
know
go.
what? It's like as a parent, especially as a parent of young ones, like taking that big step with like school age children, and we want to be overbearing. Sometimes we want to make sure their safety, obviously everything goes well, but
Yeah.
also it's the small hiccups that gives them the opportunity to kind of step up, right? To show dad like, no, I'm good. Like, not maybe good, like I'm going to find my classroom, but I'm not going to melt down. Like, I'll figure it out. Like, a teacher's going to come find me. They'll do roll call and realize, I'm on the swing set, right? They'll figure it out. So I noticed for me, like in the beginning, is like, especially with our firstborn, it was like it had to be textbook. If it wasn't textbook, it was wrong. Like for me being a parent, right? Like
Yeah.
nap
Yeah.
time, 12:03 needs to be down, or the temperature of the milk has to be this. And then with school age, it's like, hey, if you're on time, you're late, kind of a thing. And so now with like 3 deep into school, it's just like I notice the more hiccups I make, the more I kind of release the reins, the more they kind of step into their own. They become little boss babies, right? They know exactly where their classroom's at. They know what kids to hold their hands that are friends to walk in and stuff like that. And they start kind of taking pride in this is their school versus like, this is just another thing my dad takes me to, like, oh,
Yep.
playground, daycare, this. So I noticed for me, like with the younger two going to school, it was at first it was like park the car, walk you to the gate, hand off. Then it was park the car. Now you two hold hands because your little sister's in kindergarten now, and you're in fourth. I want you to walk her in. Now it's like, Dad, why are you still here? Like, what? Why are you? I'll see you at pickup. So like, oh, okay, man. Love you guys too. Bye. Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a part of me is like, oh, that's sad, but at the same time, it's like that's how they learn, right? If we just always kind of, I know for me, always kind of overparent, like micromanage at work, kind of like your kids.
Yeah.
I've noticed more growth in the last year for us with like homework or responsibility and chores when I'm not harping on them. And it's something that we've worked on, kind of natural consequences, but within safe boundaries. It's like, hey, Dad, where's my volleyball knee pads? I was like, I don't know. I don't play volleyball. Right.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, I think it's in my cubby. Let me go check my cubby. Oh no, I need to wash them for tomorrow. I was like, okay, so what do you think we should do? She's like, I should probably do a load laundry. I'm like, okay, do you need any help? She's like, no, I got it. And this is like a fourth grader, right? I didn't do laundry when I was in fourth grade, but she saw her
No.
older sister do it. And she knows the natural consequence of not doing it means no volleyball pads. Because volleyball is so important, she'll naturally start to pick up on the, hey, we're 2 days out, 1 day out. I need to get this stuff together. And that just spills over and everything. Whereas before I'd be like, I'll do the laundry, I'll fold it, put it together, put it in your backpack, you'll have your snack and all that stuff. So yeah, it's been interesting, man. That first dad guilt of like, oh, I totally messed up.
Yeah.
You realize that it creates resiliency in your kids, right? That's
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Oh, but I love that, and I'm gonna run with this riff.
yeah, go for it.
You were talking about, now your kids are further, they're a little older than mine.
Mhm.
And so I was just talking with some buddies around the fire pit last night about,
Nice.
like, I asked them, what's your favorite thing that you appreciate about each one of your kids? Like, just like,
Mhm.
what's something that you really love about each one of your kids? Like,
Mhm.
and so we went around and shared, but I realize it's interesting. I'm curious what you think.
Mhm.
Not about that specific question, but as your kids get older, I'm finding myself wondering what it's going to be like, in the sense of, right now all of my kids are under the age of 5, and
Mhm.
so they're like my, like, love them and I appreciate them for, like, really, I don't know, like, simple basic things,
Mhm.
like, and as they grow, they get more complex and all of that. But with that comes like a different, just like a grown, I guess, your love never ends. It just
Yeah.
continues to grow for your kids,
Mhm.
right? But as you find, as your kids are exiting like that cute little toddler phase
Yeah.
and getting into, like, older elementary,
Mhm.
like, do you what I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to ask. What do you find, how does that look different for your oldest? As far as, like, what you're loving about them, because you start to butt heads a little bit.
Mhm.
You're starting to get that point where, she's got her opinions and she's
Yeah.
not like this tiny little cozy little bean anymore.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I think that's a great question. And it definitely changes with the seasons. And you definitely like TK kindergarten first, I'd say maybe a little bit of second, then third, fourth, fifth. And then sixth grade, I know where I'm at, that's considered middle school. So you have
yes,
six,
yes,
seven,
you're,
eight,
yeah,
right?
yep.
And then it's high school. So I've got a middle school, I've got a late elementary, and then an early elementary. And it's definitely seasonal. But I can tell you the perspective now and what I'm really thankful for is not only individual, but the combination of all three too. Because there's things that they've learned from each other, that's been really big. So one of the things I'm most in awe of from my oldest is her ability to create boundaries and to under
Mm.
her awareness around her feelings versus her classmates, like the whole fitting in and the cliques, and she understands that she doesn't need to act a certain way to be liked by certain people. Like she's confident in what she likes, right? She loves culinary, she loves doing art, and she's cool not being the sports person now, but she is very athletic, right? And so I love the stories because she always tells me the stories of the gossips and stuff like this, but it's from an observer point of view versus like the sky is falling dad like we see in movies of that age group. So I'm really, really,
Yeah.
really, really impressed about her ability to kind of hold herself in that context. Like, hey, I'm things are not happening to me. I can observe things and then make a decision emotionally or like cognitively, like, hey, I'm going to turn right. I'm not going to turn left, or this is not that big of a deal. Like, it's not the end of the world. So, coming from like a seventh grader, like, I didn't have that head on my shoulders in seventh grade for sure. And so that's one thing that I've seen her grow into. And I think it's because early on, school was challenging, both emotionally and fitting in, but we spent a lot of time building her self-confidence up, giving her tools around anxiety and stress to now she can be the observer during like, oh my goodness, there's a test tomorrow. It's like, yeah, but we've been prepping for 2 weeks. And she's the one that comes to me saying, hey, dad, I know this is not my strong suit. So can we start doing like 5 minutes a day, like one math question a day, so that when it comes time, she's stellar, right? She's well prepared. Whereas other kids are like, book report tomorrow. Oh no, dad, can you help me write it? Right? Like,
Yeah.
my middle one, and I know it's going to sound off putting at the beginning, but I'm really proud of her stubbornness. And it's something she got from me. And what I mean by that is failures are going to come, right? Especially in that age, either making friends. You might have friends for a week and it's totally different friends the next week, right? Because you join gymnastics or you no longer sit with them at lunch. And so her stubbornness comes in all aspects of relationship, schoolwork, sports, where she's like, just because she's not good doesn't mean she needs to stop, right? She understands that nothing's going to be easy when it comes to things she really wants to achieve, right? Like if she wants to be better at art, she understands she's going to be bad in the beginning. Like no one starts day one knowing how to draw like Van Gogh, right? And
Hmm.
so I can really appreciate it. And that reminds me when stuff gets hard that it literally is, it's a consistency, right? It's how resilient can you be to come back the next day and give it another try. And she did that with gymnastics, kicking up in handstands every day for like 3 months until she could do it. And so I really appreciate that about her, that when, the old saying, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going, like she's
Hmm.
definitely in my dictionary. If I look that up, I see my middle child for that. And it's
Yeah.
paid off. Like we see her in class and stuff like that, where she'll come home and do the homework, and you can see she's getting frustrated, but she doesn't stop, quit, melt down. She's just like, hey, I need to take a break. I'm going to go out, play volleyball for a little bit, come back in and finish it. And then recently, one of the coolest thing about our toddler, so we have a 5-year-old, and I don't know if it's a piece of Mo or maybe her ability to observe. And I really think every child you have after your first has kind of that life hack of an older sibling, right? So their learning curve is a lot quicker.
Yep. Oh
And
yeah.
recently, like she's been calling me out, calling my wife out. It's like, hey, mom, you need to go upstairs and lay down. You need to take a break. And we're like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, you've been doing all this stuff and you just cooked dinner and we don't need to eat yet. So you need to take a break. Or like, dad, you did homework with Emma for this long, I'll go out and play with number two. Like I'll go play with her. I was like, I don't think Shirley wants to play with you right now, but I appreciate the idea. And so her empathy, right? Her ability to be aware, because that as a toddler, like you're the center of the universe, right? But her ability to flip from center of the universe, don't get me wrong, she's still a toddler, still
Yeah.
center of the universe, but to be able to be like, hey, you know, dad can have tough days too, right? Like parents are not like superheroes. Like they can be tired too. They cannot sleep well, because she knows, like, because I'm night shift. So if I'm up a couple times and we're on the pickup line, she'll be like, dad, did you take a nap today? And I'm like, no, didn't take a nap today, but thanks for asking. She's like, well, when we get home, you should take a nap. I was like, I appreciate that. So just that awareness at such a young age is going to be such a powerful tool to engage with other people, right?
Yeah.
To be of
Oh yeah.
service and to help, just to be able to read the room. You know what I mean? Like she does that so well at 5. And so it's been great. And I think because she does that because of her older siblings, right? She's seen her older, and our oldest says that all the time, but she's a middle schooler. She knows like, oh, dad's stressed out, right? But she shares that with the other two. And so the other two start to pick up on it. And so that's what I meant about all 3 of them. And they kind of feed, they understand when we need help without us asking for help. Be it like, let me give dad another moment in his office, aka the bathroom, before knocking, right? Or, my sister needs a cup of water. I am more than capable of giving her a cup of water. So that kind of stuff has naturally grown out of the soil because I think Mo and I tended to the soil a lot back in the day when our oldest was a toddler and then, when our second came through. And
Yeah.
so I think that's what we're starting to see kind of the, reaping the reward, so to speak. And it's just going to get better. And like you mentioned before, every season's different, but I look forward to every season knowing how much effort and time we put into the previous seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. No, I'm loving right now. I'm super stoked for the next season, finishing middle school and high school. And I think, and I know I've been talking a lot about one thing I want to bring up too, and it's just because Mo and I have been talking about recently is, we have technically a teenager, and everyone's has different stories of them growing up as teenagers. And I can't tell a story of growing up as a female teenager, but Mo, I have other friends that are females and stuff like that. And one of the things that I'm really cherishing right now is that my oldest, who's a teenager, and me are still really close friends. Like we still hang out. She still, wants to hang out with me. Like I'm going to run an errand. Dad, can I come with you? It's like, yeah, let's go. Well, let's catch up. Let's go chat. I do homework with her every night. Like that's my thing. I look forward to it. In our household, we kind of divide and conquer, so we don't have too many chefs in the kitchen, so to speak. So I
Uh-huh.
got homework duty, but it's not just homework, right? It's my opportunity to check in with her without the rest of the family, without the rest of all the plates in the air. And a lot of stories I've heard, at least from my generation, is a lot of the father figures. Like it gets to a certain point where you're like, I'm hands off, right? You're blossoming into a young woman, don't know really what to do. So I'll just be breadwinner. Whereas our take, at least something that Mo and I talked about, it's like, I want them to know at every season of life that I am dad, I'm protector, I'm always team them, no
Mm.
matter what. And I think that's starting to pay off because we hang out and we go to a movie or something, we see other kids and the relationship's not the same, right? It's still that caretaker relationship,
Yeah.
right? Versus
Yeah.
no, this is my daughter. Like we are of
Uh-huh.
same blood, we are of kin. And I'm so happy for that. And it's one of the things that I hope to still kindle, right, as we get into the next season. And I'm hoping like she still wants me around in high school, although I'm pretty sure she won't. But hoping that's there. And then after high school, I mean, like Mo and I talk about that now. Like it's weird to talk about. We're not ready to be grandparents by no means, but the fact that we can see a future where we're close enough to the kids where the kids don't want to move across the US, right? Or because they want to raise their kids with us with the same kind of morals and values that they grew up with. And so that's what we're betting on. We're putting all our eggs into our family. And it's something early on, and this might be a little tangent, but we always talk about, where should we be shepherding, right? And we talk about that a lot. Like, and we have friends that do home groups, large groups, and all that. And we thankfully have some good mentorship. And they're just like, you know what, with the age group that you're in, shepherd where your feet are at. Your kids need you the most, right? And so that's where like Mo and I are right now. And so I'm hoping that pays off 5, 10, 15 years because we talked about this before. They're only going to be middle schooler once, right? You're only going to celebrate 8th birthday once. And so we're really trying to bank that now. Thankfully, we have the opportunity to do it. We have the space and the means to do that. But I think we can all do a version of that, right? We all
Mhm.
can connect a little bit better, can show them that we're on their team a little bit better. it doesn't mean that like we all, thankfully, like you and I, we have the opportunity to be stay-at-home dads. We get to really put skin in the game, so to speak. But we led with that foot. That was the reason, right? And so
Yep.
I have to believe, I have faith that that's going to pay it forward. That's going to be a huge impact in the coming years.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, the fact that the foundation is that you have that mindset, that you're
Mhm.
going into it with that, I think it gives you a leg up just from the get-go.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, and I think I appreciate that about our generation, is that
Mhm.
I think we're like, that's just something, right? Every generation has their tools, and
Mhm.
we've talked about that. And
Exactly.
I feel like the thing that I'm pumped about is the tools that are available now in our day and age. They point to, they help with being more intentional about like
Yes.
with your kids. And I like the mindset that you're talking about, and it's something I read about in a book a while back too, that I really appreciate. Is just like this kind of like treating your family like as a team. Like, we are
Yep.
all a part of this, we all have roles to play, and like encouraging those things in each other too. Like,
Mhm.
I think when we grew up, it was more of like you're kind of like an island. It's just like,
Yeah.
do you get like, I don't know, just grow up and make sure you're doing these things, and then
Exactly.
ship them off, like out of
Yeah.
the
They turn
house.
18,
Like,
out of the house. Yep. Yep. Very
and
much
then
so.
it's just like, in like, see you later. So I think that's shifting now
Mhm.
to an extent of just, why, I don't know, presence,
Mhm.
but yeah, also intentionality, yeah, really diving into just being available. um that's something that I really want to do with our
Mhm.
kids, is just all they can always count on and know that we're available, like we're in
Yes.
their corner,
Yeah.
like, no matter what you've done, no matter where you're at, like, you can call, you can, like, I'm here,
Mhm.
and they're loved, and those types of things, like those pillars of just like, hey, this is who our family is.
Yeah.
So that's really neat, and I'm already seeing that in my oldest, of just like his attention to like the care of the youngers.
Yeah,
And
man.
so
I've
I
seen that
want to
too.
keep I
Good
want to
idea.
keep yeah, feeding that,
Yes.
because I mean, right, she's only 3, but my middle, she's just, she doesn't get that at all. Like, she's
Yeah.
very, Hudson was like really pumped, like, to like help care for both of his sisters as they
Yeah.
have come into the world, instantly. And so I think he kind of has that leg up on that. Like, that's his thing.
Yeah. That's
um
one of his special powers for sure.
yeah, because compared to, I'm like, I drop him off at school, and then I'm with the girls, and I'm like, hey, can you help me grab that? And my 3-year-old is like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's no.
Where
But
yeah,
the
where's my
the
brother? Go ask
the
my brother.
baby threw up all over me. Like, can you grab that rag? It's right next to you. Just
It's
throw it over
you're
here.
sitting on it. You are
Just
sitting
throw
on
it
the
over
rack.
here. And she's like,
Yep, and then straight back. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
That
So
that that evil laugh, the ha 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 one. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the best. Yeah. No, I've
like,
been there. I've definitely been there.
so yeah, that's we're gonna keep working on that with her.
It'll come.
It'll
It'll come.
come.
It'll
Yeah,
come.
yeah. She's only 3.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that is fantastic. And I think, I mean, I had some other thoughts, and there is a question that comes to mind that I almost think it just kind of dives into potentially the next podcast.
Yeah,
but
sure.
um
We'll say it
but
now, so if
well,
we
yeah, I'll say
forget,
it
we
now.
can
Yep,
watch
yep,
this one.
yep. I'm gonna say, the question is, what does it look like, um in the stages that we've been in, to
Mhm.
be present
Mm,
as dads,
that's a
like,
good one.
and what
That's
are
a
the
good one.
challenges to being present.
Yes.
um so that's one thing I want to dive into. And then the other one is more based on, like, just like, what are the as a dad, what are the fears you have of, like, things you don't really want to form into? Like, are there certain things that you see, either from your
Yeah.
past or from others, observing,
Oh yeah. I mean,
that's
it's
getting
definitely
personal, but like, just like, just diving in a little into like, what is it that I want to focus on rather than what, like, or like, what do I want to make sure that I'm not doing,
You know what? I like the topic, and well get into it for sure. Those could be two different podcasts.
yeah, yeah,
And I think it's that mindset or a framework where it's like, and I used to do this with coaching all the time, is that instead of listing all the things you don't want, how do you rephrase them to
yeah.
things you do want?
Yep,
Right.
yep,
And
yep.
so then we're focusing on positive, action versus avoidance. Right. Like,
Yep.
oh man, like I don't like to take that alley. Instead of saying that, like we should take a left early. Okay, let's take a left early. Right.
Yeah.
So no, both topics are good. Yeah. Fears as a dad. Oh man, there's not enough post-it notes to go through that for sure. And then as far as choosing what to focus on, yeah, and it's changed over the years, right? I think as we mature as parents, and I think it also changes with every sequential kid you have, right? Like,
Yeah.
and a lot of it, and I'm only talking from my experience. It's, things that I experienced as childhood. Okay, I want to try to avoid those for my kids. So what do we need to do? What avenue do we need to walk? What systems do we need to put in place in order to do the flip side, the positive side of that?
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
Yeah.
no, good questions.
So
Very
that's going to be great, and we'll look back at this, and then we'll have it for the next episode.
exactly.
But yeah, I guess today's the question just arose from me thinking about like, man, I got these littles, and they're about like my oldest is easing into the next stage, just
Mhm.
almost there. Like, and we still have a little time, but he's almost there. We
He's doing
blink and
great,
it's
man.
gone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's
but
true.
like, man, I'm like, I'm kind of grieving, like, oh, I'm losing my little buddy, like
Yeah,
and he's still gonna be my little buddy, like as he
he's
grows
always
up.
going to be
But
your little buddy, man.
yeah, yeah,
Because you're going to
but
get old and he won't. So he's
yeah.
always going to get old. Right.
Yep, yep. So I was thinking, I'm gonna ask Rob this for today, because as you were talking, because I'm like, what does that look like now?
You know what? And I think that,
What's it gonna be for that next stage as late elementary? It's no
mhm.
longer necessarily about, oh, it's my little buddy who tells me stories that don't make sense. It's like, oh, but I'm gonna find something that's really like, there's always just like tons of treasure troves of gold in each season,
Mhm.
right? So you try, and this is why we're gonna talk about presence next week too, is just being present in the moment to also soak up. There's like this idea of being present so that you're being present for your kid, but also
Mhm.
being present for yourself. To
Mhm.
like, man, I want to appreciate these things while I have them, because they're gonna be gone
And
eventually.
it's a challenge, right? So much of our anxiety is built up the fear of what is to come that hasn't come yet. And so I think that steals us from the presence. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into that and how to avoid
Yep.
that or
Yeah.
stuff. But that's a great question that you had with some of the dads in the group along the fire. And I think even if you don't have a group, like you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to this through a podcast, and you may not have that dad group, you may not have close enough friends that you feel safe enough to be your authentic self, so to speak. But still, it doesn't mean you can't brainstorm on your own, right? Like it's a great little worksheet, paperwork, write out like two or three things that you're kind of in awe of or really thankful of this age. And it'd be a good practice to do every season, right? We're talking toddlers, elementary, middle school. And for me, it's a great way when the times get tough in parenting, right? When you are bumping heads, to remember what the core values that you do appreciate of the little person sitting in front of you, fully melting down. And you can kind of take a breath, being like, okay, this is not the full picture. This is just this instance. Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's it. That is a gold nugget right there. So hey, let's end it on that
I
that
think that's good.
note. All
Yes.
right. So
Okay, man.
everybody, remember, we're not professionals
No,
by any
we're definitely
means
not gurus. We're just two dads in real life.
in real life.
Yep. Until
Done.
next one.